Hey there, it's Tara. She of all things transformational, and this is a video with some self-massage techniques that you can use to help yourself in the moment of a headache or preventatively. And they also just kind of feel great, so good for any time. Also, in case you didn't see it in my video where I was just talking about headaches, I love this oil. I don't work for the company. I don't have any affiliate situation. This is Olbas, O-L-B-A-S oil, peppermint, eucalyptus, juniper, cajeput, wintergreen, and clove oils. And this is an excellent oil that I use on my massage clients. I use it on myself. I use it everywhere. So if you have a headache, you could dab it on, the pattern of the headache. You could dab it on the muscles of the neck, on the chest, a little bit under the nose. Don't get it around the eyes. And this might really help with alleviating your headaches. So just wanted to give you that. And because this is a massage technique, video, you could even dilute that in a carrier oil and rub it, actually really rub it into the areas. So you will need today 2 tennis balls. And so if you don't have 2 tennis balls, pause the video, go get yourself the tennis balls, and come back to this because that is part of the video. And if you have a dog, hide them from your dog and shut the door so your dog doesn't get them, okay? The first couple techniques that we're gonna do though, we're gonna just do, you can do this sitting, you can do this standing. We're just gonna work the tissue of the upper traps and the rhomboids a little with our own hands, or if you have a sweetheart who you want to help out, you could do these for your sweetheart, or vice versa, your sweetheart could do them for you. So the first thing is, I love this so much for when I have a headache. Like if I have a headache that I know is kind of traveling up this line here, I love to really get into my upper traps. The upper traps are these muscles here. You see them really big on bodybuilders, So those are the muscles that kind of form this line of the top of the shoulder here. Okay, so what I like to do is I make a claw with my hand. I'm going to bend my thumb, and my forefinger is going to become a hook, and I'm going to put the thumb knuckle in the front of that muscle, and then use the other fingers, especially the pointer in the middle, and I'm just going to create a claw and pull up on that muscle, and I just breathe with it until I feel the acute sensation release. And I'm really putting quite a bit of pressure. So you can give this a try. You got to really use your muscles, your hand muscles here for this, okay? You can pinch with the thumb and the finger, but I find that well, it can be good too, but I like the thumb digging in there because I can just get a little bit more surface area. And as you work up and down the muscle, you might find different spots are good. So you want to do it especially to the affected side, but it's not a bad idea to do it to both sides. You can hold your elbow up with your other arm. If you're sitting on the couch, you can do this. And you just kind of want to work this upper trap. Now, if you feel a pain sensation that kind of travels, that radiates around that area or travels to a different, kind of like up into the head or whatnot, around the ear, that's called a trigger point, and that's good to release those. I wouldn't even classify that as pain. What I would classify that as, intensity, and you should be able to breathe through that, especially if you're administering to yourself. It shouldn't really cause, a pain alarm response, but intensity is okay. So you could be working that with the Olbas in an oil or just on dry skin, but getting a good grip on those upper traps and really kind of pulling up and squeezing the trap, and it's really quite a sensation. Goes into my ear, goes everywhere. I don't even have a headache and I can feel it everywhere. Okay, so that's great. You can take a second and kind of just feel into the spaciousness that that creates. When we are giving ourselves or receiving massage or giving ourselves massage techniques, we're bringing blood flow into that area. And part of what causes headaches is a lack of blood flow in the muscle tissue because maybe the muscle is tight from stress, from overuse, from dehydration or whatnot. So make sure, of course, that you're hydrated and reduce the stress if you can, right? But also relieving the muscle tension manually is very helpful to bring blood supply to the area and release the toxins. Okay, so the next one, I'm just going to use my fingers as a hook, and I'm going to find there's some really sweet spots in here that you can find, and you can just, I'm holding this arm up with the other arm, and I'm just going to dig those fingertips into the sweet spot that I find. I'm using quite a bit of pressure, and I'm just going to rock my fingertips kind of over the muscle tissue that I feel. And again, I like to find those trigger point spots because I know when I find the trigger point spot, then I'm onto something good. So like for instance, right now I'm in a trigger point that goes all the way to the front of my collarbone. So obviously you would do this to the affected side, but you could do it to both sides, be equal opportunity to your body, right? Just giving yourself that little assist here with some self-massage techniques. You can find a wall corner or a chair back to do this on. There's all sorts of ways to dig into these spots. So you could do this as long as you want. There's no limit. You'd want to make sure you drink lots of water. Next, we're just going to use these 2 tennis balls. And why I do recommend a yoga mat is because the tennis balls can slip on a floor. So I do like the yoga mat. You probably could do it without a yoga mat, but I just think the yoga mat really helps. So if you're using a yoga mat, what you're going to do is you're going to sit at the end of the mat. So your feet are actually going to be off of the mat, and you're going to have the 2 tennis balls. And some people will put these in a sock and kind of tie off the end of the sock so they don't separate. I like to have them individual because sometimes I use one or the other to kind of get into a spot. Also, if you're wearing loose clothing, they're going to wrap around the clothing, so it's probably better to not be wearing like a very loose t-shirt or something like that. Okay, so coming on down to the floor, you lay down on your back. Excellent for prevention of headaches, also fine to do if you have one. So what I've done here, and you might not be able to see because I've got, hair and they're under my head, is I've got the 2 tennis balls right here at the ridge under my skull. That's the occipital ridge of the skull. And I'm holding them with my hands. And I'm gonna kind of gently stabilize the balls and then just gently rock them around. Exhale, let the jaw release. Let the jaw go, it's so important. And then just work these tennis balls into those spots right there. So there's several muscles that attach to your occipital, that bony occipital ridge, that are, major players in many headaches. So just lovingly soothing those muscles, and you can kind of let the balls drift out to the sides, but keep them stable. I'm using my thumbs to kind of stabilize them. I'm just rocking them and letting the weight of my head over the tennis balls do the work for me. And then once I feel like I'm satiated with that experience, and you can do it as long as you want, and you can just tuck those tennis balls just at the tops of right here at the top of your upper back, where they'll stay under the back. And then you're going to use your feet into the floor and pick up the hips. And notice I'm using my hands under my head because I don't really love the feeling of my head dropping back, but if that feels okay to you, I'm not gonna come through the screen and yell at you. So I'm gonna use my feet, pick up the hips, and start to roll my body over these tennis balls. This can be an intense sensation because, you know, you might not be used to this level of depth into your muscle tissue. So if this is too much for you, I get it. You might put a blanket over them, or you might choose to do it against a wall. But I think for me, I just prefer being able to use my full body weight and release. So I'm just slowly working these along either side of my spine, getting into the lower traps, getting into the rhomboids, posterior serratus, getting into the various spinal erector muscles. You can work all the way down to the hips, really. I mean, there's no reason why not to. If it feels good, just keep on going. And in fact, all of these muscles could be contributing to a headache, even if they aren't the top culprits on the list. So if you go down, of course, you're going to want to do a round trip, and this is where your shirt could tangle up in the tennis balls. So you kind of gotta babysit that a little bit, make sure it doesn't happen. And notice I'm using my elbows and my feet and my hips to kind of help me inchworm my way along. And I think it's worth going up and down because get different angles on those muscles. Okay, so once you're there, or complete, I should say, if you want to go around either shoulder blade, then you kind of roll off to the side and just take one out, and you just start to roll around the shoulder blade. Now I'm on the outside edge of my scapula, my shoulder blade, and I'm getting into the attachments of my rotator cuffs. Holy cow, these are really intense. So this might be too much for many folks, but these do play a role in headaches because they play a role in pulling the shoulder blade out, away from the spine. And so in that position, it could be putting tension on the muscles that are on the inside edge of the shoulder blade and running up towards the skull. So I like to relieve these as well. I think that they're all relevant. And then you can do all of this as long as you want. So I recommend really you turn off the video at some point and just have fun. And then the other thing you can do, and this won't work for everybody's anatomy with tennis balls, but you can work the front of the chest and the front of the shoulder. And this is relevant for headaches because, as I've mentioned in the initial video where I just spoke about headaches and the muscles correlated to headaches, the anterior chest muscles, the pectorals, and the anterior deltoids, and the connection of the rotator cuffs to the front of the body, these all are a factor in headaches. So it's worth kind of getting into them a little bit. So after you've kind of completed all that, you can reassess. And the last place where we haven't really done any major attention massage-wise is indeed actually the pectorals. So you could kind of take your fingertips and dig into the line of the pectorals here. That's they fan, they fan. And so you can kind of dig into that line of the pectoral tissue and then really get into this spot right under the collarbone. And you'll find where the pec minor attaches, and that's got a great trigger point in there. And that really helps with releasing the front of the neck and shoulders so that we're taking them out of the tug of war for headaches. So these are some excellent techniques that you can do for yourself. Self-massage techniques. You know what? When I hang out in a room of massage therapists, we're all kind of like always like sort of rubbing on our own shoulders and like, I mean, it just becomes a habit. I don't even necessarily need to make this a designated practice time, although sometimes I absolutely do. But more so, this is just something you can constantly kind of, always have these tricks in your pocket so that when you feel like you need a little relief, you are empowered to give yourself that relief or share it with someone you love. So if you got something out of this video, you know the things to do, right? Give it a like, give it a comment, share it with someone who will find it useful. And of course, you could subscribe to the channel. I thank you so much for your time. I hope this benefits you. Namaste.